While the villagers of Ifo slept soundly, Ola had other businesses to attend to. Ola was everything but a dancer, but to the villagers of Ifo, Ola was synonymous with dancing and entertainment. If only they knew, in the stillness of the night, while the village slumbered with the moon hiding its face and leaving only an eerie silver glow to seep through the cracks of closed windows, Ola cautiously stood up from her mat and lit the lamp beside her. The rustling of leaves and snapping of twigs echoed through the silence, as if unknown creatures stirred, unseen and malevolent. With the dim light, she quietly tiptoed out of her hut to prevent any suspicions. She looked around to make sure no one was looking, and then she hurriedly ran into the darkness that seemed to swallow her the further she went. She finally arrived at Ifo's square. The village's central square, once bustling with life, now lay deserted and foreboding. The night air vibrated with mysteries and whispers of ancient powers that lurked beyond the flickering candlelight. It was a time when the veil between worlds was at its thinnest, when the unknown crept closer and the shadows came alive. Ola immediately blew off the light on her lamp, brought out a wooden bowl from her bag, and started putting sand into it. She walked round the square and bent after each step to take a handful of sand and put into the wooden bowl. Immediately she was done, she applied the sand on her body, put the bowl on her head, and headed out of the square. She lighted her lamp from the lamp burning at the entrance of the square and followed a narrow path leading to the outskirts of Ifo village. On this path, she was to neither look back nor sideways, only forward. She walked quickly, holding the bowl of sand firmly on her head. There was a night she heard whispers behind her. Fear gripped her like a hug. She stopped walking to be sure of her hearing, but the whispers seemed to get closer, so she immediately hastened her steps. She was tempted to look, but remembering what she stood to lose, she kept her eyes forward and walked faster. After what seemed like 30 minutes of walking, Ola arrived at the bank of a river. There she removed her clothes, entered into the river, and began to wash off the sand she rubbed on her body earlier at Ifo Square. Immediately she was done, she puts on her clothes and sits on a fallen tree on the shore, carrying her bowl of sand on her laps. There she fearfully waits until a spirit carries her away to a shrine. "Na Anyi, Na Anyi," Ola would call out. Then comes an old man wearing a big black robe. He takes the bowl from her and goes into the hut. After a while, he comes out and clears his throat and said to her, "You have done well, my daughter. Don't worry, you have just 5 more bowls to go for the gods to smile on you." Ndewo, he tapped her on the shoulder and added, "You can go, and may the gods grant you a safe journey back home." "Thank you, Naanyi," Ola replied, standing up to leave. The priest then tapped her 3 times on her head, and she found herself back at the shore of the river. Immediately she got there, she ran until she got to her family's compound and hastened to her room. She fell on her mat and slept like a dead woman. The next morning, the sun peeked through the cracks in Machi's hut, but she was still fast asleep. "Machi! Mamachi!" her mother called from outside. Machi stirred slightly, her eyes heavy with sleep. "Yes, Mama," she mumbled before drifting off again. Moments later, she felt cold water on her face. Her eyes flew open to see her mother standing over her, an empty cup in hand. "This child, I don't know what you do at night to be sleeping like this. We're already late for the market." Grumbling under her breath, Machi stumbled out of the hut, wiping the water from her face. Machi is the only daughter amongst 3 brothers. While the boys follow their father to the farm, Machi followed her mother to the market to sell farm produce from their farm. Ma and her mother, "Good morning, oh." The trader next to them greeted them as they got to the market. "Good morning, Neemeka. Hope your family is well," Machi's mother replied. "They are, thank you." "Why's Emma dull again today?" the neighbor asked. "Neemeka, ask her, oh. She woke up like that." But she'll be fine. Thank you for asking. As the day went on, Machi kept nodding off. She'd wake with a start when a customer approached, but as soon as they left, her eyes would droop again. Machi, her mother said softly, when there were no customers. What's going on with you? You've started again. Are you sick? Machi shook her head. No, Mama. I'm just tired. I didn't sleep well last night. Her mother frowned. You say that every time. Is there something you're not telling me? Machi's heart raced, but she forced a smile. No, Mama. Everything's fine. I promise. I only had a sleepless night. Back at home, Machi's 3 older brothers were chatting in the compound. Obina, the eldest, saw Machi walking in tiredly and called out to her, "Neo, come and greet your brothers properly." Machi managed a smile and walked over to them. Her brothers were always looking out for her. Obina, tall and strong from years of farm work, ruffled her hair affectionately. Chidi, the middle brother, known for his quick wit, grinned at her. Ike, the youngest of the 3 but still older than Mamachi, looked at her with concern. "Emma, you look tired," Ike said. "Are you feeling okay?" "I'm fine," Machi insisted. "Just a long day at the market." Chidi laughed. "A long day of sleeping, you mean? Ne Emeka told me you were nodding off all day." "Ha, Ne Emeka," she said wryly. Obina's face grew serious. "Emma, we're worried about you. You've been acting strange for a while now. Mum was telling Dad about it while we were on the farm the other day. We are all concerned. And you're not even considering any of the men who've asked to marry you either? Is it because of Kachi?" Machi's heart clenched at the mention of Kachi, her first love who had fallen ill months ago. "No," she said quietly. "It's not because of him. I'm just not ready." Her brothers exchanged looks, but before they could say more, their father called them back to work. The next day, Emma started getting ready to go out. As she was about walking out, her father's voice stopped her. "Machi," he called her. "Where are you rushing off to? Aren't you supposed to be in the market with your mother?" he asked again. Machi turned, forcing a smile. "Papa, I'm going to help Adana with her chores. Her mother is not feeling well." "Oh, are you going because you want to pay her back for staying with us when you were busy with Kachi?" her father asked. "Not so, Papa. She just really needs my help, that's all." "You girls," her father raised an eyebrow. "I hope the both of you didn't make up this story so that you can go watch the popular dancer at the square. I hear that's where all of Ifo goes whenever she was dancing." Machi laughed. "Ha, Papa, you know me better now. You know I don't like social gatherings." "All right," her father said, "but be careful and don't stay out too late." Machi nodded and hurried away, guilt weighing heavy on her heart. At the village square, a crowd had gathered. Ola was at it again. The air was thick with excitement as people roared and clapped energetically. It was obvious that word has spread farther about Ola's dance because the crowd was larger than the last time. Ola smiled. "Well, the larger the better," she thought as she continued her dance. An old woman walking past the square was about to exit the square when she felt the stones in her wrapper vibrate. This made her to stop and curiously turn towards the dance scene. Not certain. She was about turning to leave when the stones vibrated again. That was a message to her. She decided to follow the leading of her messenger stones towards the dance scene. She dragged herself through the crowd to a good distance where she could clearly see the dancer. She was almost enchanted like the others, but muttered some words under her breath and kept looking at the dancer. "Huh?" She covered her mouth in shock. Nobody noticed her expressions as they could only see Ola's dance. But the old woman kept watching with a different eyes and rubbing her 2 small stones together in her hand. This old woman was a witch hunter from Ifo. Not many knows her as a witch hunter, as her services were only sought by kings and a very few people from different villages. And on this particular day, her stones seemed to have gotten a job for her. As the dance reached its peak, the old woman's eyes widened. The stones in her hand had grown warm, a sure sign to raise her suspicion of Ola's dance. But she still needed confirmations, so with a plan in mind, she quietly left the village square. At night, when Ola was certain that everyone was asleep, she got up, lit her lamp, and was sneaking out, her heart racing. At the village square, she brought out her wooden calabash and started her usual ritual. She was unaware of the eyes upon her. She sprinkled the sand on her body, placed the bowl on her head, and was about to leave when suddenly a voice rang out. "Stop there!" Machi whirled around, her heart pounding. There, emerging from the shadows, was a familiar face. "Nkem!" she gasped. "What are you doing here?" Nke's eyes were kind but serious. "I think the question is, what are you doing, child?" Machi trembled, feeling a mix of fear and relief. Her secret was out. What would happen to her now? What about Kachi? What about her family? What would happen next?